Finding Your Frequency, the show here in North Florida where we meet interesting people, find out who they are, what they're doing, and what success looks like into the future. Brian Sexton, along with Don Fox. How are you, Don?
I am doing fantastic, Brian. It's great to be with you.
I love your energy. Thank you for coming in. Let me start by saying you have a 50-year career in the food industry. You started at Burger King, and then you migrated to one of the great economic engines and stories, I think, in Jacksonville business history, the Sorensens and Firehouse. What a ride it's been for you.
Oh yeah, I was very fortunate at that point in my career to have that opportunity for them to give me the chance. I had spent 23 years with Burger King before joining Firehouse in 2003. So on the one hand, before Firehouse, I'm with the second largest restaurant company in the world at that point.
That originated here in Jacksonville, correct?
It did. A lot of people mistakenly say Miami, but
I
very
heard
first
the story,
one it was great. And then all of a sudden I'm out, pushed out of Burger King. We reach some moments in our career that happens.
Been there. I've been there too. Yeah.
And it was really important to my family to stay in Jacksonville. My boys were very young at the time in school. I'm coaching baseball with them. I mean, you're all these things in the community.
Same story, I feel it, yeah.
I was, so 8 years in Jacksonville at that point. I moved here in 95 while I was with Burger King. So we're going to root it in the community. And promised my family, hey, I'll do my best, find something here in Jacksonville. Well, there wasn't exactly a lot of depth. There were some great restaurants in Jacksonville, but not a lot of depth in terms of larger companies with headquarters.
Right.
And lo and behold, I end up sitting down with Robin and Chris Sorensen. There's 65 restaurants at that point. I'll never forget the day I walked into their office. They had these two desks sitting across from each other, shared a room, and in between them was a whiteboard with, I'll never forget, there was this big number, 65 on it. Didn't know what that meant. When I walked in, but came to find out that's where they were tracking the number of restaurants. That was the IT system.
So there was a lot of potential there.
There was a lot of potential. And I hadn't even been a customer of the brand before that. I'm competing in the fast food hamburger space. In the years to come, Firehouse would get categorized as a fast casual concept. That term didn't even exist at the time. So they weren't on my radar screen competitively. I was squarely in the fast food hamburger segment. And so I started to do my research on the brand. Of course, went in, had the food as I'm considering going there, and it was fantastic. And I could see all the potential the brand had, and joined them as first Director of Franchise Compliance was the title.
Okay.
And that is translated into the one person who would do everything in franchising.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
And
there's a blank piece of paper, create your job.
Yeah, very, very, very much so. And so I came in very, very aggressively on that front, driven to help contribute to the success, and became Chief Operating Officer in 2005, and then this Chief Executive Officer in 2009. So over all that time, 20 years in total with the brand, grew it from the 65 restaurants to about 1,250.
And it's hard to believe that it's been 3.5 years since they sold.
It's coming up on it. It was December of 21 that we closed on it. So, coming up on 3 years this December. So I stayed with the new company. Ironically, Restaurant Brands International, which owns Burger King. So talk about some karma and how that all came about. But that ended up being a good thing, because none of the same people were still with the Burger King brand. But culturally, I knew what Burger King, which evolved into Restaurant Brands International. They also own Popeyes, Tim Hortons. Brands. But we knew a lot of the leadership that was there. We shared a lot of relationships, knew a lot of the same people. So it was easy to vet the individuals I was going to be working with on the leadership team there.
When I think about Firehouse and what the Sorensens did, what you all did, I think about all the opportunities that it spawned off for you guys who were with Firehouse. And there are a lot of... It was an economic engine, wasn't it, for a lot of people?
Yeah, and I think I share this sentiment with Robin and Chris. Some of the greatest satisfaction over the years came from the opportunities it provided for people for their personal growth, whether it was people that came onto the team and helped grow it from the headquarters side, or the franchising side. And we had a lot of people on the headquarters team over time who decided to go the entrepreneurial route and became franchisees, area representatives, and still with the brand today with great businesses, generated tons of success, not only for themselves, but they in turn brought that culture forward and are growing their teams and their businesses.
It just keeps growing and growing and growing. When you build a culture and a brand and have a product that all works together as well as Firehouse.
Yeah, and you can't say enough about the culture, how important that was. And I was very fortunate as CEO. I inherited some great cultural elements that the Sorensens put in place. You know, elements of treating people fairly. Frugality was very important in business. They were very frugal. Had like no debt. I think it was after 2000 or 2001.
So you're an author as well, and I've got a book that you wrote called Patton's Vanguard. And as we sit here on D-Day talking, we don't have enough time to get into this now, but you are going to come back, correct?
Absolutely. I'd love to come back and talk about that.
When are you going to write a book about Firehouse?
I'm working on it.
Are you really?
I am working on it now. Probably about 3/4 of the way through. Have a I'll call it a rough first draft. But that was something the Sorensens and I had talked about for quite some time while I was there. While you're growing it and you're in the middle of it, it's not the time to work on it.
Right.
But after I decided to retire, I immediately turned my attention to that, and so it's been great sitting down with Robin and Chris, interviewing them over time, getting especially the stories from before I joined. I'd heard a lot of them
I've heard some
over
of them too.
the
I want
time.
to read them now.
But then when I was doing it for a serious book, I said, okay, I've heard all these stories before. Let's separate the fact from the fiction here.
Although leave a little bit of the fiction, right? Never let the facts get in the way of a truly good story.
It's not been embellished very much, though. Not
very much, but I do like that thought.
Yeah, so fascinating working on that. I've got another World War II book coming out later this year that's already done.
So retirement really isn't retirement for you. You're just shifting gears and taking your energy somewhere else.
Correct, and I've been very flattered to have people reach out to me after my retirement to do some consulting work and board work, and on the nonprofit side. It's
anything on that you'd like to share? Anything from the nonprofit side?
Sure, yeah, two things. Well, I do still maintain a relationship back to the Firehouse brand through the Firehouse Hubs Public Safety Foundation.
Absolutely.
So I'm on the board there, and over the years we've donated. I think the number now is over $82 million in equipment, a lot into Northeast Florida, being based here. But that's tremendous, and especially when you meet people whose lives were saved or changed by benefit of the equipment that was donated, the first responders that came to their aid. It really is incredible work. And the other nonprofit that I'm very close to, I'm on the board of, is the Army Historical Foundation, based in Washington, D.C. We operate the National Army Museum right outside of Fort Belvoir, which is just south of D.C. Brand new museum, first national museum for the Army, opened right after the start of the pandemic. That was a bit rough and rough timing, but now is flourishing, doing extraordinarily well. So if viewers are in D.C., I highly encourage you to put that on your list of museum visits there. And so appropriate with it being D-Day. And one of my purposes for writing those books was primarily, it was never a financially driven thing. It was really to keep the memories of what these guys did alive.
The greatest generation, which are almost all past now. So
sadly,
stories, it's up to people like you and all of us to keep that alive. So little time and so many great stories to tell. I hope you'll come back.
I will.
Right? We like here on Finding Your Frequency to find a good story and tell it exceedingly well. Thanks, Don, for joining us. Longtime CEO of Firehouse, now turned author, entrepreneur, and a guy we want to hear more from. So we'll see you again soon here on Finding Your Frequency.